Good evening, this is Kimberly Chambly, here to talk about constructivism with you. A lot of people don't know what constructivism is, so we're going to talk a little bit about it today and find out what it is. Constructivism is when students actively construct their own knowledge. What students learn through constructivism is determined by their own experiences as a learner. It's the idea that people learn effectively through making things. If we look at this graphic here that I put on the slide under what is constructivism, we have all these different gears turning. And as you can see, creating also turns remembering gear, it turns the understanding gear, turns the applying gear, turns the analyzing gear, and the evaluation gear. So when a student is actively creating their own learning, they're also turning the rest of these gears in their mind as well. Then we have our foundational theorists that kind of for the main people that came up with this idea of constructivism. We have Jean Piaget, Levi Volsky, John Dewey, and Jerome Bruner. And a lot of people wonder, how does constructivism differ from just the normal traditional teaching? And the first thing would be the curriculum. Curriculum, it's going to go from transmission to a transactional curriculum, which this means students are actively involved in learning and not just sitting and listening to the teacher lecture all day. This means instead of them sitting and being bored, sitting at a desk, and the teacher basically talking to them all day, they will actually get to participate in different activities like in science, they'll get to do different science experiences. Math, they'll get to do different like little math blocks to learn how to do it. Reading, they might get to actually act out the book. They won't just have to sit there and read the book. Might ask, what's the teacher's role that would differ from traditional learning? And the teacher's role is to create a hands-on learning environment. Like I said before, this means instead of a teacher just standing up there lecturing, you give them an environment that they can construct their own meaning and understandings. A kid's going to learn more when they're able to sit down and actively do something as opposed to just sitting there and listening to you lecture all day. They create an environment that allows anonymous learners and inquisitive thinkers who think, question, investigate, and reason. This means we give them all capabilities they can to dive into a question. If we give them a question, we give them everything they need to investigate the question, to think about the question, and to reason the question. We also must recognize how our students use their own experiences, which means we have to learn how our students learn and what they do to learn. And we also have to give them real world relations to go with what we're teaching. So instead of just teaching them about the solar system, we want to show them the solar system. Also, students are viewed as being as different than a normal traditional teaching. Students are viewed as being empowered and successful. This means instead of them sitting in a classroom, we empower them and we see them as being successful because we see how creative they can be with their learning. They're also considered to be the center of the classroom, and the student's needs are put first. This means if something's not working in your classroom for the student, something needs to change with the teaching. They're viewed as being, so also a big thing for them is they're viewed as being responsible for their own learning. This means they need to take more responsibility for their learning, which is where the constructivism part comes from also. And then back to they're viewed as being empowered and successful. This means the teacher sees them as successors of their own learning. They're empowered to use their own ways of learning. Because not all students learn the same, which means the students need an opportunity to be able to learn how they learn best. Another one, how do students work in a constructivism classroom as opposed to traditional? Well, first they work to construct their own meaning, which means one student might work through something in math totally different than what another student might learn from it. But if they come up with the right answer, then it's okay. If one student does it this way and this student does it this way, as long as they understand and as long as they can tell you how they got that answer and show you how they got that answer, it's okay. This means they're allowed to do what is necessary for them to understand the material. This means questioning, investigating, researching, whatever they need to do to get it. They work to predict, manipulate objects, pose questions, research, investigate, imagine, and invent. They seek answers to the questions that we propose to them. Then they present us with the evidence that they found. And we have to be okay with them doing it different than what we thought would be right. Assessments assessments are completely different as opposed to the traditional teaching. Most assessments are going to be formative. You're going to use the work that you see them do. You're going to see, like, their point of views would be a way to do an formative, because that's how you can judge if they understand what's been taught by their point of view and how they re-explain it to you. There will be some tests involved. I mean, you have to have tests. But a great saying that goes with constructivism is, the process is just as important as the product. Just because a student can produce the product does not mean that they understood the process. So they need to be able to understand the process as well as the product. Then we have the PAR model. PAR stands for Present, Apply, and Review. This relates to constructivism because the teacher presents the material and the objects. Students are given tasks or presented tasks that require them to apply the knowledge, theory, skills, and etc. that have just been presented. This involves them in the problem solving, making decisions, creating things such as posters or mind maps. That's the apply. And then review, what was to be learned is summarized and clarified with emphasis on the key points, especially important at the start and finish of topics and lessons. So the PAR model goes fantastic with constructivism, because in the constructivism, we want to present them with, let's say you want to present them with the knowledge, but you want them to take the knowledge that they've learned and apply it and learn it how they need to learn how to do it. Like, a great scenario would be a 4th grade classroom, and we're teaching on electric currents. So I could sit there and I would present my students with all the information they would need to know about electric currents and what electric current is, how electric current works. And then me as a teacher in a constructivism classroom would allow them to apply that knowledge by giving them a battery, a couple of wires, and a light bulb, and letting them apply the knowledge they just learned and have them, I will give them, they'll have free range to figure out how to get that light bulb to light with the battery and the 2 wires and the light bulb. It would be their responsibility to try and figure out how to get that light bulb to work with the knowledge that they've learned. That's them applying that. And then the review we would go around the classroom and we would each talk about how we got that to work and why does that current work to get their light bulb working. Like, what did they do? Why do they think this worked for their light bulb to do? And that would be also another way to do a formative assessment on them to see if they truly understood what an electric current was. That they didn't just put a bunch of wires and batteries together and just happen to get it to light up. They would need to explain why they got that to light up. Thanks for listening to my video on constructivism today.